friends. This is the Be Real Babe podcast, a place where your average Canadian wolfpack come together to talk about life stresses, messes, and successes. A safe space where being yourself is the ultimate goal. Each week we will bring you new episodes sharing our experiences on a ton of different topics in hopes we get a better understanding of ourselves, each other, and this crazy world we live in. We want to build a community where we can show up as ourselves, be real, and lay it all out there. By sharing our experiences, we hope to reach others who can relate so we can all help each other learn, grow, and heal. But please keep in mind, as a disclaimer, none of us here are professionals. No one is giving any advice. We are strictly speaking of our life experiences, our opinions, and for entertainment purposes only. Now, with that being said, grab your drink, grab your joint, and let's jump right in. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the Be Real Babe podcast. If this is your first time here, thank you so much for stopping by the show today. We hope that you have a good time. And if you're a returning listener, watcher, supporter, thank you guys so much from the bottom of our hearts for coming back time and time again. For those that don't know me, my name is Brandy, and I am the host of the show. And today we are on episode 101, The Effects of Backwards Clown World. You heard me. The effects of backwards clown world, which Canada has been in about, the last 5-6 years under some certain person. But we won't get into that right now. We have an amazing guest coming on the show. We're going to talk all about things that are just frankly backwards in the world and how we grew up and how we're seeing it now. But before we jump on to our guest, you guys, I just want to make sure to remind you, if you are on Rumble, to make sure you're giving us a follow, subscribe there. If you are on YouTube, we're going to continue to try to upload on YouTube the best that we can. So make sure to turn on those notifications, as well as Spotify and Apple. Turn on those notification bells and give your babes a follow. If you like to, give us a shout out on Instagram and like our page as well. We absolutely love talking to you guys, and want to thank you guys again so much as we wrap up season 4 and get ready for season 5. But I will end it there and let's jump on to the show. All right, babes, let's get on to the guest of the show. I'm so excited, you guys. You all know him on Instagram as Vancity Mountaineer, but in real life, his name is Dusty. Welcome to our show, friend. How are you?
I'm doing good.
Thank you. Thank you for coming on. Sorry, I just wanted to say that. Thank you for coming on our show. We were just, as you mentioned, you're one of our first guys, only guys, so welcome.
Awesome.
You're not in a season that's full of pink and purple, so at least that when we did our first guy on the show, all of our colors were pink and purple, and I was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry.
No big deal.
So today we're going to talk about a bunch of shit, but talking about backwards ass clown world. But for those that maybe don't know you, Dusty, can you give our fans and our community just a little rundown of who you are, what you do, how we stumbled across you?
Yeah, well, I actually just started. I'm super shy and introverted, and COVID hit, and I was sitting at a Irish bar, so St. Patrick's Day, and I just right away I didn't buy into it.
Nice.
And so I kind of just kept to myself, kept to my kids. I'm a chiropractor, so I kind of keep that under the wraps on Instagram because I can get in trouble for having opinions. So I basically just went under an alias, Vancity Mountaineer, and it happened actually because I wasn't allowed to watch my son play hockey, and I was just so fed up. I just did a video one day thinking, I'll just do this for shits and giggles. No one's going to care. And I had something like 2,500 views, which isn't a ton, but for a guy that didn't think anyone gave a shit what I said,
Yeah,
it was
no
cool.
doubt. Yeah, especially when you felt so alone, right? You're just like, I kind of feel alone in this, but let's just see. And then all of a sudden you get all this support, and you're like, maybe I'm not alone.
Right. And it was just, this whole thing to me is about us fighting for our kids and our future and getting this back on the rails. I just feel like, we've talked about this before, is if any of us would have folded, and if all of us would have folded, then now we just push our kids to the front of the line, and now we expect our kids to now be the ones defending us, and I just think that's chicken shit.
Yeah. Oh, totally. One thing I will say is, like, parts of me really wish I had a kid, because I was like, if I was a parent, that would just give me so much more fire, because I do care obviously about other people's kids, but I didn't get to be exposed to that as much. So I imagine the rage of what that would feel like for them to see, and how do you navigate them in a way, because they're surrounded by a little bit of little psychopaths too, no offense, right? Like,
Right.
That probably trickles down from parents where, you're already seeing kids being bullied in school. So I couldn't imagine, as an adult, how hard that was for us to be bullied. And then now you've got the kids as well. Like I would be, it's probably good I just have cats.
Yeah, and I mean, if it wasn't for my kids, honestly, I would have been one of the, because I've seen a few of the Freedom people, and they've just moved to Mexico or Costa. I would have been one of those guys.
Yeah.
I
Oh,
was peace
absolutely.
out, see ya, I don't care.
Yeah.
You guys deal with it. But the fact that I have kids, I have to stay here and I have to fight. I have to like do go to the bitter end on it.
Yeah.
And the
Make
fun
it better.
part, I actually was really disappointed with other men.
Yeah.
I saw all these raging, strong women fighting for their kids, moms.
Mm-hmm.
And the majority of the Freedom people at the start were all moms.
Yeah.
And I was so disappointed with guys because they were
Yeah.
just, and I
Quiet.
mean, and maybe we'll talk about it in a bit. It's
Mm-hmm.
just disenfranchised male that we have in North America now.
Oh,
And it's
it's so bad. Oh, I
right,
just watched a video about it and how, and we can jump into that because I think that is really important. I'm really glad that you want to talk about this, is how I feel they're breaking down the family unit. And by doing so, they're attacking each piece of it and separating them more and more. So you've got men not feeling like they're allowed to be men, and women not feeling like they want to be traditionally women. And then the kids are like, fuck parents, I could just become viral on TikTok, and I'm my own person because my teachers now told me I matter and I listen to them and I don't listen to their parents. And it's like all this edging is like kind of making the family unit kind of fall apart, And I'm not saying everyone has to stay married or connected, but there's just this like animosity all of a sudden with genders and like the kids and adults, and it's weird, and I feel like it's by design.
yeah. I mean, if you read a book by Patrick Buchanan from early 2000s, it's called Death of the West.
Ooh,
And
nice.
it's basically about how the communists, when they were trying to come through in World War II, they tried to infiltrate into North America, and we just wouldn't have it because we were such a family unit. I mean, even look in the Black American population, they were something like 80% nuclear family in the 60s,
Yep.
and then they brought in the civil rights movement, and it actually had a reverse effect where it kicked the fathers out of the home and it started to decay the family. And now they have like a 25% father, or sorry, they have a 75% fatherless home rate in the U.S. And with any demographic, whether it's black, white, whatever,
Yep.
if you
Everywhere.
have one parent in the home, you're going to have higher rates of all these negative sort of markers, whether it's crime, premarital sex, premarital pregnancies, gang violence, death. All these things run with not having another parent. And typically it's not having the father in the home.
Yeah. Isn't that wild though, if you think about all of the things that they say that they're doing to protect that, but it's actually like going really against it. And I watched this video from Teal Swan yesterday, and it was about wokeism and how essentially every part of the woke movement is essentially masquerading as something else, right? So it's saying it's here for safety, but it's actually putting people in jeopardy, and it's
Right.
virtual signaling, instead of actually like social justice. And there's no actual movement. It's actually moving us further away from our spiritual like awakening,
Right.
with all these false pretenses. And I feel like it's like this inclusivity, but it's like excluding so many people in the same breath. And it's a hate on genders. Like I get so frustrated. I'm not a feminist. I would say if I was, it would be like an old school one when
Right.
we had
Right.
none of that for sure. But that I see all the men and see the suffering that they have, all my guy friends that have to go through crazy baby mamas and all that kind of stuff. And if you guys even speak out about it, it's just how terrible you guys are. And I'm just so done with that. And I feel like it all stems back to this kind of shit.
Right. I mean, and that's it. I'll go back to the feminist thing. I mean, it was brought in for a certain reason, but it actually had an opposite effect of what it might have initially been intended for. Because if you actually look at happiness studies, they women have taken the biggest hit in happiness from the 1950s to now. They're actually far less happy nowadays than they were in 1950, which is crazy because you think if you went by what a feminist would
Supposed to
say,
be.
right,
Supposed to do.
you're more independent, you've got jobs, you're
Yeah.
boss, all this stuff, but you're less happy now. Well, why is that?
Because we're meant to be not at home. I'm not saying
Right.
necessarily that, but providing, whether that's as a mother, as like a community person, but doing things that make us feel like we're nurturing, as opposed to just making that bank and doing that. Like I love my corporate job.
Right.
I'm not able to have kids, so that I put my nurturing in other ways, right? But I feel like that sensitivity, that divine femininity is also being attacked as well. It's like you can't be that stereotypical, like, oh, I want to take care of my man and my house
Right.
and my kids, and you know, that's now looked down on or fringe. And it's like, no, most people are doing it because they financially fucking have to, the way it
Yeah.
is now. It's not because they want to, it's because they
No.
fucking have to, or they can't afford their rent.
Well, and that's the thing. I think that also there's been a myth that it's a cakewalk as a guy.
Yeah.
But
Oh,
it's
yes, that too. 100%.
cherry pick all the good stuff. Great. Yeah, you can
Yeah.
cherry pick all the good things.
Yeah.
But even if you're talking about assaults, I've heard the stat: 1 in 4 women are sexually or physically assaulted in their life.
Mhm.
1 in 1 men are assaulted in their life. Every single guy that's watching this video will attest to being punched in the face for no reason. That's an assault. Every single one of us has had somebody attack us for no reason, and
Yeah.
it's okay. I mean, they actually had, I think it's on YouTube, and it basically was a college study where they had a couple walking through a park, and they had two different scenarios. So they had the scenario where the man would be talking sort of abusive to his girlfriend, and right away everybody stepped in within like a couple seconds.
Yeah.
But they had the scenario where the girl was being abusive to her actor boyfriend, and
No one says,
nobody was stepping in. She was smacking him. She was actually even more violent than the guy was, and people were giggling, kind of laughing. It's kind of like that Bobbitt thing from the 80s or 90s where she cut his penis off,
yes. Yeah.
and everybody thought it was a joke.
Yeah. No.
But if a guy did anything even remotely close to that, and he would be put in jail and probably murdered
Yeah.
in jail, and rightly so.
Yeah.
Right? Not
Absolutely.
justified,
Absolutely.
obviously. I'm just saying there
Yes.
is such a discrepancy of what we take seriously between
Yes.
men and violence because domestic violence stats are pretty much right down the line.
Yeah. Oh,
50
yeah.
domestic violence is started by the man, which leaves 49% is started by the woman.
That's
Right?
wild.
Always hear about how, and we should
Yeah.
all take violence seriously on both ends,
Absolutely. Yeah.
but it
Yeah.
always seems like it's skewed to the one side.
Yes, yes. And that, I think that was one, oh, what was the show? There was a Netflix documentary not that long ago about it was two bodybuilders in the States, and she killed him. And it was a big fight about, oh my God, I wish I remember her name. It just recently came out just before Christmas. And the fight was is that the attorney was saying like she's not a woman because she bodybuilds like a man, she takes steroids like a man, she, and it was like kind of the first of their kind of being like she's not this abused victim woman because she's was fighting men in like WWF and stuff like that. And so it was just a very interesting take, and I completely agree. And one thing I want to bring up too is that people don't take seriously, and we're going to be talking about this on the next show, is the effects of porn. But men that get sexually abused and raped, they are
Right.
not taken seriously, and that is bullshit. Because and another to this, it could be a older lady hitting on a high school guy, and that's okay,
Right.
but the other way it's not. And it's like, no, neither of them okay, neither of them
Right.
are, that's not okay. It's not okay for one gender and not the other. It's, that's a line that should not be blurred. But it's like, oh, the guys think that kid's so cool, but that's actually affecting him really badly.
Right.
And
Well, we're
very
over,
much the other way.
our society is over sexualized already. I mean,
Yes.
get into it. I mean, I was born in 1975, so I grew up in the mid 80s
Yeah.
watching Spielberg movies and all these movies that I thought were innocent. And actually, I've gone back to watch them now because my kids are 10, 12 years old.
Yeah.
And I sort of previewed some before, and I'm like, holy shit, I can't let them watch this. Like, highly sexualized. It's all,
It's too much.
there's that called, oh, what the hell was it called? It was about a camp, and it was like a summer camp, and not Cannonball Run. It was another one. And it's a Canadian one with Bill Murray in it. And I watched it, and it's got 5, 6-year-old kids, and it's all like sexualized. And I'm thinking, I watched that movie when I was probably 7 years old, and I thought it
Yeah.
was right.
Right.
And
Do
we're
you
just
notice that?
slowly, and we wonder why all of us guys have porn addictions or have had them and had to fight through them and get over them, which affects
100%.
our, which affects our relationships, which
Yes.
makes us less motivated to be successful because we're sitting around because we've already had this, we've hit these dopamine highs and so we don't want to do anything,
And that's
right?
exactly what, yeah, exactly what we're going to talk about. And it's so sad because no one's taught that. It's just from day one, like even back to Disney, it's pushed
Right.
into our heads, and you see that. And I think we didn't notice it maybe as much back then because it wasn't as pushed now and it wasn't as radicalized, right? So it's like now
Right.
Disney's not just talking about men and women, which is a common thing. And I'm not saying gays should have representation. I'm not saying that at all. But when we start bringing in these new things like the binaries and all the different genders that come with that into that young of an age, and we are already seeing the effects of us then, what is that going to do to the kids, you know, in 15, 20 years? That's my question. Like, we were already over sexualized with that tiny little bit of that. Now it's turned up and added 10 different layers of it. Does no one think this is going to be very confused? Like, I was already confused when, and social media wasn't around when I was a
Yeah.
teenager. No wonder why everyone's confused. And you go online, you're like, I'm confused about my sexuality. And it's like, oh, well, you're obviously a transgender and you da 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 da. And you're like, oh, that must be it. And then you go, you know, it's just, it's scary
Right.
how
Being a
this
teenager
is
as a
happening.
straight boy and a straight girl is freaking hard enough.
Well, that too.
You know,
I
it was
know,
hard
right?
enough.
It
I
was.
went through, I would never, everyone's like, wouldn't you ever go back? No, I'd never
No,
go back. That was horrible.
no.
Your
So
body
awkward.
looked like everybody looks awkward.
Yes,
You know,
absolutely.
you don't know where you fit in. You're
No.
trying to manage what the trauma from your family life,
Yep,
because most
absolutely.
of us have some kind of trauma from our family life,
Everybody.
right?
Yeah.
And
On
you're
top.
interacting with people, and you don't know, you don't have any capability, you don't have any communication skills because your parents haven't given you those,
Nope.
because they
No.
were products of dysfunctional families too. Like my parents' age would have been the kids that were of the World War II veterans.
Yep.
So there's PTSD that nobody talked about. There was alcoholism,
Alcoholism everywhere. Yeah.
and the generation before that was World War One, which would also, so you have two
Back to
generations of
back.
war veterans with PTSD that nobody treated, and now and then that ripples. Like, how many generations does that trauma ripple through? I mean, we really see it. We see it in First Nations communities. We see that generational trauma that ripples through. Well, we also have that in just the general Canadian population that
Yeah.
nobody talks.
Yeah, and it's all the stuff that's coming to light too, and everything that's happened the last couple years too, right? Like it's insane to me, and that just
Yeah.
I'm I'm kind of grateful for COVID in this sense that I was just so focused on my own life, which is good. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, and I was just kind of doing my thing, just as most Canadians were, and I never really thought about politics or anything outside of my life because why? I'm happy, and then all of a
Right.
sudden, my prime minister told me I was misogynist, and I no, like, it happened before that, but you know, it was just like,
Right.
okay, there's a lot more in the world. And I used to have this mentality of like, not my monkey, not my circus, like these people identifying as whatever doesn't really affect me. But then it starts getting into the schools that then form the next generation, and now taking a part of all of our regulating bodies and policies and getting into
Right.
that. And it's like, no, it does matter. And I'm not
Right.
saying we need to cancel or stop things, but these questions and these conversations need to be had when lines are getting blurred and things are being separated traditionally that has worked for a long time.
Yeah, and like going back to what you said, I think it was all planned. I mean,
Yeah.
there's that old saying. Oh, no, I'm blanking out on it. It's basically like give them. Is it wine and circuses or something like that? And you can
Sounds like
control
fun.
something like that.
Yep. Yep.
So correct me if I'm wrong on that, but it's basically that the gist of that. Just distract your population,
Keep
and
them
you can
level
do it.
low.
Yeah, we've had, well, let's say end of World War II, 1945 till now, we've had a marshmallow life in North America and in the West in general. We
Mm-hmm.
haven't had anything to worry about. We don't really, unless you're
Yeah. No,
in
yeah.
fringe of our
Yes.
society,
Yeah.
you have a pretty safe life. You know, you're not going to get murdered. Most likely, you're not going to get raped. You're not going to have any bad things happen to you for the most part, unless you put yourself in a bad spot, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
We have a really safe society. We've had that for so long. We've just got lazy. So
Yes.
it's like, talk about football and hockey and watching reality TV shows and go and get drunk on the weekend and sitting on the lake on the party boat,
Yeah.
you know, and that's all that. And so we were so engaged, like you said, in our own personal lives. I was big into hiking and all this other stuff, but it was still selfish.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. You don't see
I
about the bigger
about
picture.
COVID. It
Yeah.
was like, I always say that COVID made me fall off the hamster wheel, and I
Yep.
appreciate it for
Absolutely.
that, because I got to take a perspective. The first few weeks, I was like super depressed, like, oh fuck, my life is over now. I can't make money because I got shut down for 2 months.
Yeah.
And then I actually sat there and just like realized, like, holy shit, this is a really good opportunity to really reset,
Mm-hmm.
right? The people like us seem to have got that.
Yes,
We
absolutely, absolutely, and come out positive because
right,
we went through so much hardness. I kinda had this thought of, like, in just relation almost to the vaccine, it's like if you were unvaccinated, you kind of had to go the uncomfortable and hard and being pushed out as society and shamed and whatever. Like our hard part was really, I think, is over. And
right,
so you had to either be uncomfortable up until the, like, let's say trials. That was when my thoughts, I was like, I'm waiting until the trials are done. Or now it's like you're going to have to be uncomfortable while you figure out what just is going to be the fallout of this decision. So it's like, we had that and now we've been through it. So I feel like we have this, like, I don't know about you, but this January was so much lighter than the last 2 years.
totally. It was
I
like we did of a toothpaste tube. It
yeah,
was really hard until we got pushed to the
yeah.
hole. You know
Now
what I
just
mean?
free. Yeah.
Now, oh, okay, I can handle anything now because
Absolutely.
it like last year at this time, it
Oh,
was it felt like I had like a Mack truck. It felt like the convoy was sitting on my head.
yes,
Like not,
absolutely.
but that's that size
Yeah.
of weight on me
And
because
no
it was
idea when it was gonna end. That was my
right,
biggest thing, like, I can last, I'm a strong person, and I was just kinda like, "But until when? Until when?
right,
When is enough?" And then soon as the convoy took out from Vancouver, I just, like, when I seen all Canadians come together, I just
right,
bawled it. I was like, "This is what we were waiting for." And then in the show specifically was when we were like, "Okay, now we feel safe to start talking about this when we have got millions of Canadians actually behind us. It's not just, like, the handful of people we've found from posts and people that had just had enough and needed a one moment rant and we all found each other that way, because it was fucking scary.
yeah,
And you were quiet, like you said, you get quiet at first and you see other people getting dragged and you're like, I'll stay out of this. And then you start realizing, like you probably did, like, oh, I can't go see my kids play hockey. Now I have to tell my kids this. Now I have to get my kids involved in this adult matter and explain to them why their dad can't come, but other dads can go. Like,
right. Yeah, I woke my kids up pretty early. I think by May of 2020, they were because I went. I was fortunate enough. My parents have a cabin on a little shoe shop,
oh, nice.
so I spent 40 out of the 60 days of the lockdown up there with my kids.
Nice. Okay, that's
So
great.
they got their daily
Rant.
rant because that was before I was even on Instagram. I kind of went
That's
off because
awesome.
I pissed off everybody in my surrounding life with my opinion because right away I had the same opinion
Yep.
and I ranted on my old Instagram. And and everybody was telling me I should die and that I would kill my grandma and I was a horrible person and
Yes.
I don't deserve to have kids and all this stuff. And so I was like, you know what, f them. And I
Yeah.
went up to the cabin, shut it all off, watched the
Smart.
sunrise day on the lake, paddleboarded, all that stuff, and kind of really got reconnected with who I was.
Yep.
And then I came back. I think around August 2020, I came back on it, and I didn't. I came on as an alias, and I didn't add anybody that I actually knew. I only
Smart.
followed the people like us,
Yeah.
and it just felt like this family that we had sort of found. And because I don't know about you, but I always felt kind of different than everybody, even as a kid. Like I
Yeah.
didn't feel like I fit in. I was always the kid that sat in the corner. I could have been popular, but I don't like small shitty talk. I like
Mhm.
real talk.
Serious stuff. Yeah. Yep.
Right.
Absolutely. Not surface level.
And it feels like on every level we all found each other because we're this it's like it's weird because it's like the people that went against us were also the people that probably all felt like oddballs as kids and we
Yes.
all kind of stuff.
Yep.
Maybe that's why we were able to resist.
I always felt
Because,
like I was the loud person, like that I always spoke what was in my mind out loud, and people always
right.
were like, "What are you doing?" Where I was just like, "What do you mean? What am I doing? Like, how do you not talk like this? How do you not share what's in your mind? What do you like? Why wouldn't I share what I'm thinking? Why would I?" And as I aged, I then started to dull myself and change what I was saying because I didn't want to be viewed that way. And I wanted to fit, like you said, fit in more. So, okay, I won't be that crazy loud weirdo. And as I'm growing up, that's what I'm finding people love the most about me. So I'm like, that's so wild. And I think that's what it was, is that we'd already known what it felt like to be alone in the past for some reason, whether that's through a childhood or divorce or parents or friendships. And I think most of us were just like, we know what it's like to be alone and care more about our value and our morals than an external source. And that's when it came up
Right.
to this and COVID. I was just more like, let people do their own thing. That was my biggest fight. And
Right.
then when the vaccine came out, it was like, I've had a blood clot from birth control at a young age and I've had nothing but problems. So when I was just very blessed to have stumbled across, it's called the 67 podcast, and he right from the beginning explained it in a way where I was like, I don't want this, and he all said, if you are at a childbearing age, don't get it. And I was
Right.
like, well, I'm already very infertile as it is. I don't want to take this last chance on our last couple years that if we do have one, this would be the years. And like
Hmm.
you said, you shared that, like, I'm not getting it for this. And it was just people were outraged. And you're like, if I was talking to you about my infertility at any other time,
Right.
you would be sympathetic to me. But now when I say that's the reason why it's still not good enough for you, what?
Yeah, well, I don't know why all of a sudden it became like people needed to know what your medical shit was. Like, it's my personal business. Like, fuck off.
That's why I said, I was like, do you go around asking people when they've had their last
Oh,
pap
like,
test or their last, like,
right,
colon check or
right. Like, I'm 47. I think I've done a pretty good job getting there the way I am. Like, I know
yeah.
what I'm doing. Like, back off.
And even if so, even if you made the choice and you wanted to die, not
Right,
to be like that, how is that anybody else's choice? Like,
right.
this is where I wonder we're all corrupt because we're pushing this maids thing a little bit too
Well,
far too, right? And it's like,
right,
yeah, it sounds about on fucking par the last couple of years, honestly.
right.
But that's being pushed when the trials are coming out of 2023. I don't think people realize this last 2 years. I don't know if for you, I was like, oh my God, 2023 seems so far away to wait for these trials. And now we're here. And it
Right.
sounds like all these vaccines might be pulled. We've seen everything. And now it's like, they're like, oh, you were the trial.
Right.
We are
I
the
mean,
trial.
I think
We
today, CDC is now admitting that there might be a reason to look into where the blood clots are coming from and the strokes are coming from. Like, fuck, guys. Like, really? We all know. Like, I don't even roll my eyes because it's like we knew they knew.
yeah.
They
Oh yeah. Yeah.
studies showed that they weren't. It wasn't a safe thing to be given to the public, right?
And I
So,
wonder, do people think like when we called this, and my question is, and maybe you can help me with this. I've been asking this a few times. So let's go back to the original science of all of this that did all of this. That original science has changed, right? Like
right,
they have come out and said what we said originally was not correct. Why do you
right.
think people still hold on to the original science? Like, do you think it's just like their cognitive dissonance that's so hard that they're like, I cannot accept that this is a bad thing, even if the people telling me it was good is now telling me it's bad, I'm still not going to believe it.
I think that when you get duped as a human being, you really have a hard time to admit that you got duped, right? So it's almost like a saving face thing. They're just going to ignore it, put their head in the sand. Like, people won't even talk to me about it.
No, oh
That,
gosh.
because they don't want to hear any more information. They just want to go. They want to put their head straight forward and just keep going into the future and not think about it. And if something happens, they don't want to relate it to what
No.
has happened. Even though it's crazy how much is happening in even the last week,
Yeah, in the
more
last
and
couple
more.
of years.
Like, every single day now, there's
Yeah.
somebody.
And the celebrities
Yeah,
too. It's just nonstop. We're trying
when
to
that
decide we're trying to decide what the celebrity conspiracy is. Like, why do some of them drop dead and then some of them don't? Like, are they trying to get rid of all the ones that aren't like
yeah,
they're
they're on
puppets? Is that what it is?
the ones, yeah, to drop them.
I'm just saying, like, was
Yeah,
Lisa Marie Presley not a part of it? Like, rest in peace, and we're sad. And I'm not saying all these people are,
right,
but again, you know how people say like, "Oh, well, it's only being brought because you're bringing attention to it. That's why you notice it." This isn't like when you decide to buy a fucking car and all of a sudden you see the same car all the time. This
right,
is unprecedented amount, and I'm like, you are in the field. I'm sure you can say like most healthy people. I've never seen my trigger is the athletes. That's
right,
my biggest thing. Like I'm a fitness. I've been into the gym for the last 10, 12 years. I take care of my health. I know what it's like just to maintain. And it's
right,
a decent amount. So these athletes are going way far and above on their nutrition, on their training, on their recovery. To me, it seems wild that no one would sit here and be like, why are all these, well, people are, but on that side of the argument, not noticing the increase in that, in cancers, in, you know,
right. Cancer,
illnesses, everything. And I'm just like,
the autoimmune disorders, right? I mean,
through the roof.
I mean, just the basic science of that. If you're manipulating your genetics and you're inserting it into your own organ systems, well, is your body not going to see? Your immune system is going to see that as foreign.
Yes. Yeah.
That's basic science.
It's someone
So,
was explaining self, not self. Like you react when it's something coming into your body that's not self. And
right,
when the pathogens come in, I think it was Dr. Weinstein on the Joe Rogan podcast
right,
recently. I think it was number 1919 or something. And he was saying it's
right,
like when the pathogens come in, your body knows how to react. And that's what's now going to happen with these mRNA, is that it's triggered your body to create these proteins. And it's just going to keep doing that every time something is not self in the body, which could be any flu, any bug that gets into you, right? Is that fair to say, kind of
Right,
thinking?
right. Yeah, and that's it. Like, and it just depends where the majority of that material sort of. That's why I don't think you're seeing a consistency with where it's hitting people.
Yes.
Wherever it's tended to land, now that body is looking at that system potentially as foreign.
Yep.
I
And
mean,
where was your baseline, right? If
that's
you're a sick person,
sure,
you're probably going to get sicker. If you were a
right.
healthier person, it probably is
From
not going
a
to
science
hit you as hard.
perspective, right? Yeah, I'm looking at a science perspective where I don't know for sure, but that's why I didn't do it in the first place. I'm not going to do something unless all the questions I have been answered, or at least
Very
most of
true.
them.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's almost been this thing where questioning is bad, but then you're not doing science. They say trust science. Well, you're not doing science if you're not asking a question.
Yes. And isn't it ever evolving? Like, how many
Right.
times in science it says, well, we thought this, but it changed. So it's like, I don't understand when we bring that up, especially when it comes to humanity and this, what we're doing to people. Isn't it all practitioners' main number one goal is to do no harm and to give informed consent? And I
Right.
know you're not injecting people, but as a medical professional, I'm sure people trust you. I trust my chiropractor. I ask her a lot of stuff that's outside of her, not, let's say, certifications, because I trust her opinion and she's around those kind of fields. So how are you supposed to even just like, you know, form an opinion when you're not given the full story?
Right. Right. And that's it. Like, I just did a seminar on MVAs, like motor vehicle accidents and chiropractic, and we used to treat
So
for we
did
used to
you
treat
bring up did you bring up that insurance spiked if you're unvaccinated in an accident?
No, I didn't read that. But but before we'd treat for 3-4 months.
Yeah.
Now the new science, the new evidence is saying 6 treatments by your chiropractor. And I know any chiros that are watching that aren't going to like it, because that's definitely going to decrease what you're going to make off of it. But if you're going to treat ethically,
Yeah.
6 is where you should be doing it. And actually, they even said that qigong is a really good adjunct to add into chiropractic, which we never thought before. So that's what my point is things change as we get the evidence.
Yeah.
Then you have the obligation as a practitioner to change the way you treat once you have that evidence.
Yeah, absolutely. And isn't it
Don't
different province to province too? Like you guys have different boards through provinces, right? So it's almost like, like I know, for example, massage therapists can't do cupping in BC, but they can cup in Alberta. But it's like
right.
the science behind cupping isn't different.
Yeah,
It's just
that's
the
different.
regulating bodies
More like
picking.
scope of practice,
Yeah.
what you can do.
Yeah.
When I went to Portland, Oregon to school, we did minor surgery, which you
Cool.
saw that when I stitched up my own
Yeah.
hand, right?
Yeah.
So I got to
I didn't look at it long, but I seen it.
I, I thought 8 hours in the emergency room, plus they're going to ask me if I'm vaccinated. And I was like, forget it. I got the suture kit. I'll just do it. Anyways, we learned
Fair.
all the stuff there. We
Yeah.
learned a whole bunch of things that we can't do, doing blood work, urine analysis, all these things, but
Mhm.
it's not in the scope in BC. So in Oregon, where I went to school, wider scope of practice, guys. And it's different in all these different fields, have different scopes of practice, right?
Yeah.
BC for chiropractors is very, very limited,
Yes. I
right?
feel like that's PC's like in general for everything.
Right. Well,
I
because
don't know why.
there is monopolies on certain in healthcare and in other things, and
Yeah.
people just have these. To me, it's an ego thing.
Mhm.
Instead of all of us working together and doing what's best for the patient,
Someone's got to
then
do it.
you know what I mean. And,
Yeah.
and, and there's this hoarding, like but you're not doing anybody any good if you're just hoarding everything. You're not actually caring for for people's real health,
And I
and
think
that's
that's the
right.
biggest part that everyone's this last couple years has struggled with. It's not the chiropractors and the other health professionals because, you guys have honestly, if you look at everyone that's being really honest about what's going on, it has been the chiropractors, it has been the naturopathic
Right.
doctors, and even like I think it's Dr. Taylor Bean, I think she's in BC. She is a vaccinated naturopathic doctor and she is very honest about her stuff that goes against, and she's like, not everything is going to align for everybody, and that's why you find a practitioner that works for you. And I think that's
Right.
super important. You should be able to
Right.
work in the ways that you want to in your scope, and your patients should come to you based on that. And you
Right.
should be able to have wiggle room. Like my vet, she will do pharmaceuticals, but she also does natural stuff. And she's like, which one do you guys want? And I was like, thank you for suggesting it. If the natural one doesn't work, then yeah, I would love to have the backup pharmaceuticals. But thank you for letting me be a part of it. Most vets, it's like, you're getting this, you're getting that. Like, I
Right.
love the including the people in the process so they understand what kind of treatment they're getting. Like,
Right.
I don't know, it just and people deserve to know what they're getting into with their health. And I feel like too many people put that responsibility on their healthcare professionals, like, and it's like, no, you should be a part of it. Ask, why are you doing this? Like, so I know, how did I get here? How can I prevent myself from getting here? Like, what's the root cause of this? Like,
Right.
just as a
Yeah.
chiropractor, you have to find what caused that, or you're going
Uh,
to see that person on repeat probably, right?
100%. And on the practitioner side, we need to stop worrying about our pocketbooks and worrying about real health of our patients and not being afraid. I'll refer within my own office to another chiro because I know we all have our little specialties and our and I have no problem sending mine to another person or the physio or down the street to another physio that does a different technique than the ones in our clinic.
Yeah,
Like that's how we have to be. Like shouldn't be about us getting rich. If we do, that's great. It's good to have abundance in your life and be able to be
of course.
successful, but you shouldn't be building your healthcare clinics based on greed and on what's best for you. It should be what's best for everybody else,
Yes.
what's best for your patients,
Yes. And
right?
I feel like the pharmaceutical and all that really pushes that kind of thing. Where if you look more to the natural side, it's more like how, what's weird? Like, I don't need to necessarily always go to my chiropractor. I have her there, but I actually believe in maintenance. And because she treats me so well, I will go to her every
Right,
month or every six to 8 weeks so that she just makes sure I'm good and that I don't come to her in a mess. And, she doesn't. She respects that I like to do that. And it's just such a nice relationship when you have that honesty. And even
right,
when I first came in, I was like, I'm not vaccinated. And she's like, that's okay. And I was like, thank you. I feel so safe here now. Like, I can be myself and I can talk about it with a medical professional, because you should be able to be safe to, and
right.
I'll tell her, like, hey, I'm sitting really stupid. Like, help me. What am I doing wrong? Like, and it's nice for people that don't have that kind of relationship with a practitioner. I feel for them, because the ones that care, it's just so nice because you guys really care. And you'll be like,
Well,
okay, go to this person, like acupuncture will help you. Like, I asked her, I was like, should I go to physio? She's like, oh, I would love it if you went to physio. And I was
yeah,
like, maybe that takes a bit away from her financially, but it sets me more up for success. I don't know.
right. Because that's what we got originally for, is to help people. We didn't get it. I didn't. I was just a poor student when I started. I didn't get into it. I got into it
Dollar
because I
bills.
help people.
Yeah,
Right? That's
absolutely.
most people in the alternative health field got into it because we really want to help people. We really believe in natural health, and that's the other thing too. We need it, like, as practitioners, and not so much in the natural side of it, but in maybe more the medical side. We got to get rid of this godlike thing where the doctor is the say all be all, and look at it more as a partnership. Like,
Yes.
patients come in, I'm not sitting there dictating to them. Even if they don't want something that I do, like, let's say an adjustment, just tell me, we'll figure another way to do it, whatever's best for them. We're a team. Like, I like to look at it more as a team thing, and that's how health should be.
Yeah, like an
You're
integrative health team.
right. Well, the patient is more of the factor of anything.
Yes.
It's your body. You know your body. You know your history of your body. You know what works, what doesn't work, and you know your motivations. If you're not going to work out, well, then, and you just got to be honest. If you smoke, if you do all these other things that's detrimental, and then you can come in, but things aren't going to work unless you actually are committed. Like, I always say to people, like, health is actually like a wheel. The Indian flag, I always think of that as the health wheel,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Oh,
The
yeah.
wheel on the Indian flag.
Yeah.
Because every component of health, whether it's how much you work out, or your diet, or your
Sleep.
amount, sleep, meditation, all those things, hydration, um, if any of those spokes are broken, well, your wheel is compromised, right?
Absolutely.
So you have to have it all. You can't just be taking
One or
one.
the other.
Right,
It's a
right,
balance. And I think so many people, like, they just get so overwhelmed. And again, I don't know if that's by design when it's like taking care of your health. And this is another topic that I feel like we could talk about that's a little bit backwards of,
right,
like, with the healthcare too, is like, when we talk about health and fitness, it's now looked upon as if we're shaming people or we're looking down on those that don't do it. Or furthermore, the people that do it, they're all about vanity. And like when you go to the gym, you
Right.
just care about getting abs. And it was crazy. I was talking to the girls today about it, and they were getting into more of their fitness regime. And they're like, oh my God, I'm feeling so good. Like this makes me feel so empowered. And I feel so good taking care of my health, especially because the government wants me sick. So it's kind of giving me fuel.
Right.
And I think that's fucking awesome. But you see people like Lizzo or who was the other one? Fuck, what was her name? She's a British
Oh,
actress, Fat
I know.
Amy or whatever. You
Yeah, I
know,
know.
they lost a bunch of weight and they got shamed in the body positivity. And it's like, guys, yes, you can't look at someone and judge their health by their size. Absolutely. But you
No.
don't get it twisted that every single size on everybody is healthy. And so
Right.
when your doctor and your medical professionals are telling you, and people around you are talking about nutrition and the gym and how good they feel, I feel like it's coming through a lens of judgment there by being like, I don't want to do it. So you're just doing it to be like have abs and look good. And it's like, no, I'm doing it to like you have kids, you want to be strong enough to be there for your
Right.
kids. I want my heart to last. I want my
Yeah.
lungs to be if I have to go to war and I'm getting pulled out of my house to get vaccinated, I want to hold on to that fucking door and fight for
Yeah.
the last second,
Right.
you know,
Well,
like
strong trigger finger.
exactly. Like there's more to it. And I feel like this is another thing that's backwards in the world is they're setting up that healthy lifestyle to be now like fringe and extreme and
Oh,
vanity, and
calling
you're
it right wing now. They're
they
calling it
call
a
it
right
right
wing
wing.
movement. Yeah.
It's like, okay, well, you know what? Honestly, if we're gonna go to war, I'm sorry, I want the people. And you are right, men and go circle all the way back to how men have it worse. When we go to war, who are the fucking people going to war for the most part? Yes,
Right.
ladies, I know, don't come at me, but
Three quarters.
majority
Three quarters of war deaths are men.
are men.
When that gets more equalized, then we can,
We can talk
you know,
about it, right? And so
right,
this is where I think it is really important. Like, you know, my spouse is the same way. He gets really frustrated when he hears, you know, like we don't need men, and and equally so gets frustrated. He says, "I need you. I need you just as much as you need me. We're
100%.
one, and we're together. That's what makes it beautiful. Is like, you know, you can have feminine and masculine energy in one human being, and you
Right.
can both play with those lines a little bit. But I think there's nothing wrong with the traditional, like, you know,
No,
he works more and makes more money. So I try to balance that out because he pays more bills by taking care of the home more. Does that mean that I think because I'm the woman, I'm the bitch that I clean the house? No, he's gone working more. I work 8 to 9 hours a day. I can take the 1 or 2 hours extra to put into that because he's working to make us more money. But when I
right,
say that, I'm like anti feminist and I'm here to like da 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 da. And
right,
all these thoughts are being pushed and they're confusing people to a huge level, and it's pushing people away from relationships,
right.
friendships, work life, and it's really fucking sad. I think
When
we
it's
just
turned
went through
into
a whole loop
a gender
there.
war, to a gender war where we're pointing fingers at each other. Like on my Instagram, I will do little nudges once in a while, but I do it on both sides.
You
I
do,
make fun of
yes.
guys
Yeah,
too, but when I do it to females, not all, actually, I actually get a lot of love from women. Like
you do.
when
I always try to. I try to
right,
promote it.
I actually get way more when I call like the filters on Instagram. If you're doing it as a joke, fine. But if you're doing it to make yourself look like a certain thing, like I made a thing like you look like an F430 Ferrari, and you're actually a Honda Civic. Well, and there's nothing wrong with Honda Civics. It's a good
No,
solid car,
yeah,
but just
yeah.
well, Civic. You know
Yes.
what?
And I don't think they're seeing the damage it does to themselves. I think that's the
Right,
biggest thing. And you followed me long enough, you see how I'm very honest about that and how
right,
much it drives me nuts because again, what damage is this doing not only to myself, what is this doing to the next generation? And you can sit here and bitch and say, "Oh, I don't care." But you're also bitching about the generation that did shit to you that you're now
right,
suffering with. So, yes, we have some fucking responsibility here. And why am I trying to hide imperfections? Why are wrinkles at 36 years old a bad thing? When I was a teenager, Botox and filter or fillers, which to me is equal to living in a filter all the time,
right,
is there were 50s, 60s, 70-year-old women. We don't know what 20, actually, we do know what's going to happen to all these girls getting this at 20, 30 years old. It is
right.
not going to be good. It is all going to go south very soon. And those divots
Yeah,
that you're trying to hide are going to be sagged down, and you're going to have to get, and it's just never going to stop. You're now a cash cow to the beauty industry.
100%. So physically you're going to deteriorate, but that it's going to be a greater amount of physical deterioration you're going to interpret. So your mental deterioration is going to be far greater than a woman that's just naturally aging, in my opinion. Absolutely. Because you're going to have, and not only that, you're basing what your value is on your look.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like I've said in many of my things, like build a personality, right? Read some books.
Yeah.
I find, like, that's the one thing when I grew up in the 80s, and then in the 90s, I was in my late teens, early 20s. That was the golden age even for women. Because you didn't see the women dressed like the 80s sort of hairband women, and then the late 90s started getting into the Britney Spears stuff, and women were dressed sluttier again.
Yes.
Which is fine. That's what folks both do it. But also at the other side, don't be surprised when you're not treated the same way as the girls in the early 90s that were wearing Doc Martens and plaid shirts wrapped around their you know what I mean?
Tommy Hilfigers.
And we're sitting there talking about world events.
Yes. Yeah.
Right? Because I remember having many conversations with really cool chicks that were at parties with me, and I'm like, this is fucking awesome. That's what I want as a man.
Yeah. And now you go to a party and everyone's trying to be like, come join this TikTok. And you're like, okay, I'm out.
Right. I mean, and I may be speaking just for myself, but I think a lot of guys feel this way. I want an intelligent woman that's a freaking warrior in her own life, but I'm going to fucking put her up on a pedestal when she comes home.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. And it doesn't mean I think she's weak.
Nope.
Just like I don't think those World War II vets thought their wives were weak. No. They just saw value. You're the vet, and this might sound cheesy, but you're the vessels of life.
Yes, 100%.
Men see that, and through history we've known this, that you are way more important than we are. That's why we go to war. Yes. That's why we go to war.
I heard this thing too, that it was saying that why men, what was it about having multiple partners? And it was basically saying that it's because men know that women can go get multiple partners. So that's why they don't actually want that kind of lifestyle, because they wouldn't be able so easily to go and get multiple partners. And I think, again, that's because in our brain, we know that we need that to procreate, right? And so I think that's what is a natural attraction to it. But and that's what I mean, like, it's good to have those conversations, and it's good to be able to be like, I don't want to go and do the man stuff in the house. I'll do it. Right. I'll fucking do it. I've had to do it. I have a spouse that goes away, so I have to be the man of the house when he's not here, and that's okay. But when he comes home and the furnace is broken and he's taking care of it and I don't have to, I'm not gonna be like, you're not respecting me as a woman. Like, let me do it. I'm like, no, please, daddy, go fix the fucking furnace. Like, come on, this is great. I'm going to go cook dinner. Like,
right.
But apparently that's terrible of me now. And by the way, the whole daddy thing's a joke. I don't know if you know that. It's like a big joke between us. But anyways, but you know, and he was watching this TikTok the other day, and it was like, oh, I don't need a man. And it was like, she was trying to replace the tire in her car, and she completely fucked it up. And she was like, okay, yeah, I think I need a man. And he's like, but why even say that? Why not just be like, hey, I'm going to try and do this. I know this is a man job and I can try and do it. Fuck yeah, be empowered. But don't be like, I don't need, like, because that means like they're useless. Like, they're not.
Fan, like Bill Burr says, the pigtail, the feminist hair will go up into pigtails, and they'll be screaming for the men to come and save them. And it's like, that's true. Yeah, and it's just, you know.
I was gonna say, it's the same thing when they said cancel the cops, and then all of a sudden all this crime happened, and they're like, bring the cops in, and you're like, okay. Or like the government with the guns, like, oh, you guys, your day-to-day people can't have guns, and that's what's gonna stop violence. But it's not. It's the criminals that are doing it illegally. Like, you backwards ass fucking people. Like, what's going on?
And they're solving a problem from an 1983 problem, when with the new technology, most of these guns, I mean, I just saw another article about ghost guns with the 3D printers. You don't think that guys, you're basically going to also take legal gun owners and make criminals, because people are going to, if they feel like they're being authoritarian, they're going to go off the reservation and do their own thing. And with 3D printers and machining and all this stuff, you can produce all that stuff without any records.
Yeah. And too, you're pushing people to be innovative.
Right.
You're pushing people in a corner, right? And I was the same thing. I'd say like 5 years ago, maybe more, not anti-gun, but just like, whatever, hunters, do your thing, people have your things, but I'm not like, I feel like everybody should carry one like they do in Texas as they're walking around. But then
Right.
someone pointed out to me, if we were in a restaurant one day, especially down in the States, and a guy came in, a crazy guy with a gun came in, and you were sitting there, would you want me to be strapping a gun and knowing how to use it?
Right.
Yes,
Well,
I would. And it's sad we're in a world that we have to think that. But it's again like taking away the guns from regular people is not going to stop the crime. It's going to create more, and it's going to create more innovation on how to do that.
right.
Where to me, the energy should be like mental health. Why are people
There you
shooting?
go.
Like, you have pushed
Right.
us into these spaces where we're over addicted to things. Now we're overstimulated with all these social medias and being stuck in our house and no connection. And I find too, I don't know about you, but like obviously, duh, you didn't work from home for your job, so you probably can't relate. That would be weird. But for myself, especially last winter, I worked at home for a long time, and I only saw my spouse and people at the gym that I was allowed to go to. So my social experience was terrible, and I felt like I couldn't talk to people, and I also felt like I didn't have any emotion for them.
Right.
So, but when I talked to them in real life, I was like, oh my God, I forget. I love this person. This is a great person.
Right.
So I feel like the last 2 years really pushed that it pushed the mental health, then it pushed addiction, and now it's pushing all these laws in different ways and is really backing these people in a corner. And now inflation and all these confusing blended thoughts. No wonder why everyone's so fucked up now.
Yeah, everybody's has a hairpin trigger ready to snap, right? They've been isolated. It's like I remember this old Bugs Bunny cartoon where him and Daffy Duck were on a boat together, and they then started to look at each other like I think one was like a roast duck and Bugs
Oh,
Bunny.
yeah.
And it's like when you start to isolate and you
Hmm.
get your brain starts to get like that cabin fever thing. And I
Yep.
think we had 3 years of maybe 2 years of cabin fever, right, where people were so isolated.
Yep.
And then and then you're amplifying the negative thoughts about people that aren't the same as you, right?
100%. Yeah. And
And
putting them in these
that's by design
categories.
as well. The
Yep.
media is doing that as well.
Oh, fuck yeah.
And
They're the
all these
worst.
little all these little words they throw at as misogynistic or racist or this or that, and
Anti-science.
right, anti-science, yeah, all that stuff. And it's like, well, even like I said the other day, I said when a guy messages a girl on social media, it's called sliding into her DMs, but a girl can do it, and it's just messaging a guy. Like,
Yep.
we're in a different world. These young guys don't have the ability to meet girls in real life in a lot of circumstances. So if you're putting pictures of yourself looking beautiful and you're getting upset because some unknown guy is coming into your message thing, well, what are you looking for? I don't understand. What are you looking for? Are you actually for a partner? Are you actually looking for a relationship?
Yep.
And when a guy comes and he might be, that might be your guy, and you just snuffed him off because you said, "Oh, he slid into my DMs. All he wants is sex." It's like, well, you know, I don't know.
I'm
Again,
sure at some
right?
point, but like but isn't
Yeah,
that what
right,
everybody does at some
right,
point though? Like that's such a weird thing. And I'll add to that too. I'll add that because I have lots of
okay.
single guy friends, and what they'll do is they'll try to approach people girls in real life then. And it's like, you're a fucking creep. Why are you talking to me?
That's the other thing.
Bitch,
They
what
look
do you
for
want?
yeah. It's like they think you have a van around the corner and want to put an ether rag on their face and
And I mean, be
this is
cautious for
yeah,
sure, but like,
right,
but
right,
don't just immediately think. And so I don't know. I mean, like, I think it's probably weeding out the psychopaths for you. So it's
right,
probably the better thing. But it is sad. And it's like, and then it's also, where did this come from then?
right,
I think it stems back to what we just talked about, breaking that family culture, that
right,
and amplifying hookup culture. And think about when we were growing up, all the videos, I'm a little like smidge bit younger, but you would have been the same kind of time. All of the videos were about hooking up and partying and all that
right.
kind of stuff,
First,
Playboy, and
music
that was
video.
what was cool.
Yeah,
Right? So that's what I grew up thinking, that I was cool if if every guy wanted to sleep with me and I got to sleep with him, that meant that I was cool and I was popular and
right,
and I was wanted. And then I grew up with okay, that's unhealthy. Now I'm
right,
an adult, like, okay, I got some trauma there. What happened there?
right,
But I never was taught that, because that was taught that that was your worth and your value, and that's how you knew you were a part of something and you were cool. And now you're like, well, now I'm 36 with a whole fuckload of trauma, so I don't think that
right,
was probably cool. And where did I get that from? Not my
right.
parents, my peers, and my peers us got it from the movies and all this stuff
100%,
by
right,
design to take away the family
right,
unit. And now look at this family unit. They're pulling even harder.
Right.
at all these different things. And I'm not saying that people aren't gay or transgender,
Right.
none of that. But it is really, really amplified to the point where some people are getting that taken away at a young age and they change their mind and they never get to have that. And it's not just the mental, it's now the physical attack of them
Right.
not
Well,
being
that's what I'm
able
going
to
to
be.
say too, is that it's not just mental. Now they're physically changing their hormones in their bodies when they get to, because 90% of transgendered people will revert back to the sex of birth by
Mhm.
25, 26.
Yep.
What happens now that you have prepubescent body parts or they're removed,
Yep.
right?
Exactly. Yeah. Or blocked
I
from
personally think
actually glowing.
there's going to be
Yeah.
a lot of suicides, a lot of
There's
lawsuits.
already there's a lot of lawsuits already happening.
Right.
Jordan Peterson had one gal that was on there, and it's just insane to me. And I want to add further to that. What my question is as I was 16 and I mutilated my hormones
Mm,
for birth control
right.
and uninformed consent. I did not have informed consent. It was taking away my period pain and it was taking away my acne, and I wasn't going to get pregnant. That's what that was
Right.
doing. So look how fucked up just me as one individual had from fucking my hormones and suppressing them as a
Right.
teenager. So you're now telling me, not you, these
No.
people are saying that, like I'm going to suppress your natural hormones and then on top I'm going to give you some other gender's hormones, and I'm not going to pretend that that's not going to have any fucking repercussions. It sounds like the women and birth control attack times 1000 to me.
Right. Right. You're right. So you modify, you convince these young girls that hookup culture is cool.
Yep.
Then you have to go on birth control. So you're messing up with your hormones, messing up with your cycles.
Mhm.
That's the thing too. Why aren't we teaching young girls? Okay, fine. If you want to be a big girl and sleep with guys before you're married,
Yep.
you should learn your cycle.
100%.
Right. I'm a guy. I
100%.
just, I actually just learned, I learned about it a while ago, but I was like, oh shit,
Yep.
that's that.
None of
Why,
us knew, man. None of us fucking knew, not even
why,
us.
why don't you do that?
Yep.
Right.
And I just
Well,
went on a rant today
hey,
about it. We are
right,
not taught. And you guys are told, oh, you can get a woman pregnant any day. Be careful, be
right,
careful. And then that's a power for a dangerous woman to trap men, because there are
right,
women that do this with that thought pattern. When realistically, you've got like a 48 window one time a month, and you can track that as women have been many,
for
many moons.
thousands of years.
Like that's how it started. So I've been doing it for 3 years. The app told me today it was coming and today she showed up. And that is how accurate, because I've been off birth control for 3 months. So my body's starting to go back to its natural, and I can tell you anytime. I'm so connected to my body now where I am in that cycle in the month, because I'm not having a fucking synthetic hormone blocking that from happening. So
Right,
now, even with my emotions, I'm aware and I'm not losing it on people. I'm like, "Ooh, okay, yeah, I see where I'm at. I'm a bit emotional. Oh, yeah, I'm at this time. Okay, maybe I'll just back off some social things. Whereas before I'd be like, oh, I'm fucking crazy. And it's like, oh, well, no, this is that part of the cycle where you are just a little bit down. It's okay. And but we're never taught that. It's insane. And it's like it traps people on both ends. And then we just then mask everything. Everyone has to be on birth control all the time so no one ever gets pregnant. And the repercussions from that is uncanny. I had a doctor today in my DMs and he was like, the amount of women I've had to teach in their adult life about their cycles is insane. Should be
right.
taught as you're growing up, as you're coming into that as a teenager. It shouldn't be in your 30s because you have so much fucking problems. You're now trying to figure it out.
Yeah. Well, that should be sex ed, not like that. You can be 40 different types of animal or gender. It should be how to do your cycle first. You know what I mean? And like I said,
Let's
I don't.
start with the fucking basics. Like,
You know what I
can
mean?
we learn our
Right.
own genders first before we start becoming frogs? Like,
Right.
fuck.
Right. It's like, and did you hear that study? And it was about birth control and how women select mates
Yes.
based on whether they're on birth control or they're not. They will. They found this in the study that women will select a mate more similar to them, as far as genetically, if they're on birth control, which actually is less advantageous as far as your genetics being passed along, being you want someone as different as you as
Yes.
possible. If you have the most, look at dogs. Mutts are
Diverse. Yeah.
healthy dogs, fine. You get a purebred and they got or hip dysplasias and all these other things,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so women that aren't on birth control will actually seek out. I think it's your smell, isn't it? Wasn't it through
Well,
smell?
it's actually like what you're attracted to. So you're attracted to different kind of men during your cycle, but you're also attracted to different kind of men depending on birth control or not. So
Right.
this is why I think a lot of people divorce after they're married and they have their first couple kids, because that's when they go off birth control and they're probably their husbands got snipped, or they're just, being careful and they don't need birth control and they're no longer attracted to their spouse like they
Right.
used to. And so
Right.
when you're in your
I
phase,
I lived
right?
that one. I lived that one. Yeah.
So, well,
Yeah.
I
Right.
didn't have kids, but I'm like, yeah, I'm not attracted to him now, so that would make sense because I'm off it now, but it was then, and I think too, a lot of that is, oh, was I gonna go with that? When you're in your phase as well. So when you're ovulating, you're obviously that's when your body is like revved up and you're like
Right.
attracted to the rugged, like manly man that's gonna take you and get you pregnant, right? So your body
Right.
amps up to that. And then when you're in your period, you just want like soft and like
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
even look at me and just like give me chocolate. And, so once you know that and you know those phases go through your body naturally, you stop being so mad at yourself and you start understanding your
Yeah.
chemical compounds and the emotions coming from that. And then you can start addressing those. So it's like, okay, I'll just be like, oh, yeah, I got my period. Yes, of course we know that. But you don't have to be like me, like nice, but just like I'm going to be a little bit more snappy. So I'm aware of how I'm talking to people and how I'm like, today someone said something and I was like, oh, and I was like, oh, that's just period cranky. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not actually mad at all. And,
Right.
it's a
And if
joke, but it's
also your
serious.
boyfriend knows that, then he's
Yes.
gonna because guys are really simple. We're super simple.
Yes.
If
It's
you just
great.
all we need to know is just tell us.
Yes.
Don't layer it in a whole bunch of layers. Try to like make it mysterious and stuff
No,
because we're gonna get it wrong 95% of the time. Just fucking
it's
grab us
now.
by the grab us by the scruff of
Yes.
the shirt and just say this is how it is,
Yeah.
and then we're like, okay, cool,
Yeah.
I'm good now.
Yeah.
That's all you know. I don't
Yeah.
want to try to solve a Sudoku puzzle. You
No.
know,
No, and that's the biggest thing is communication, and again, understanding that balance. So for us, it's like I was just ask me how just ask me how can I support you, and I'll tell
right,
you. Right now, I just need a hug. Right now, I just need you to listen. Right now, I need you to bunker down and help me figure this out. Or I don't. I just need you to listen. I'm just venting. I don't want a solution because you guys are men. You action shit. You want to fix shit. You don't want to see
right,
your ladies in dismay. But sometimes that shit isn't for you to fix, or you can't, or it's just an internal thing. But I didn't realize until I communicated that you're always going to want to try and fix it. I'd be like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, I'm not a child. You don't need to fix this for me. But it's like, no, you're really trying to help me. And that's so great. But in this moment, I don't need it. I just need you to listen. Be a woman for me. Bring in that feminine for me and just give me your ear and it'll be over. And I just
yeah,
think because of like we talked about in this whole thing, all these things are getting so blurred and politicized and emotional that it's really taking the beauty of simplicity of life and simplicity of what like you don't have to be traditional, but I think if you are, it's okay to be. And that's kind of what I just
right,
wanted to bring to this. Like if you don't want to, like, I don't know. It's like tell people to live how they want to live, but also to like understand the repercussions of what that does in society and the rest of the world too. There is
right,
a bit of responsibility that we have to have, and we can't just let everybody do whatever they want all the time because
right,
we get to where we are now with certain things, right? Where little kids are chopping their boobs off and they can't have kids anymore. And you talk to trans, like real trans in the community will tell you
right,
this isn't okay. You go to Buck
right.
Angel, you go to Blair White, you go to a ton of
Blair
them.
White,
She's
right,
fucking amazing,
yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah. Well, I
it's
think it
like,
was like Thomas Jefferson said, like freedom is about what you ought to do, not what you can do, right? It's about what you morally should do. That's your freedom. It shouldn't be like just a free flood of because then that's anarchy, and there's going to be a whole bunch of negative repercussions of that, right?
absolutely, absolutely.
Right. We have to have some kind of moral code, whether you believe in a god or a universe or something. There has to be some kind of standardized moral
Faith.
code we live
Yeah.
by
Yeah. Yeah.
because
Absolutely.
and it's been tried and tested throughout history, right?
Yes.
We don't have to redefine or reinvent the wheel here. Like the wheel's already invented. We just have to maybe smooth out some of the bumps in the road. Like we're
Yes.
basically trying to like remodel the whole car and say,
Yeah.
well, the past is bad. No,
No,
most of the past is actually good.
it is. Yeah.
I mean,
And it's been convoluted.
even in the pharmaceuticals, like most
Yep.
of those pharmaceuticals come from natural products originally, right?
All of them mostly do, don't they?
Part. Grandma's cold solutions were probably better than what you can get on the. Well, you can't get them on the shelves now, but like go back to grandma's medical cookbook, and you probably have better solutions than going and getting Benadryl and all this other shit, right?
And I think a lot of that comes with convenience and quickness. No one wants to,
Well, that's
no one wants to
oil. Yeah,
sweat out a fever. They want a Tylenol to mask the fever and what they
right,
think is going to make them feel better. But they'll feel better to function, but they're actually suppressing their natural body doing that. If you just let your body natural pass it, you'll have the benefits of like a better immune system, but then
right,
you're not clogging your body up. Like I believe in Western medicine and pharmaceuticals when they have a purpose,
right,
but I
right,
don't believe it needs to be everything. And if you're looking at a illness, for me, it's always been like mask it with medication. No, I want to know why this is happening. Sure, this can help me, but I took anxiety meds for like 2 years. It did fuck all for me except for dulled me and made me a terrible person, and it didn't solve my anxiety.
right,
So because I still had to work on myself, I still had to work on my body, on my patterns. You can numb your brain, but your body is what's functioning with your nervous system, with your anxiety. So numb your brain, but it's your body's reacting. Like when I drive and from my car accidents and I'm scared, my leg will shake. It doesn't matter how much medication I'm on, my leg is going to shake until
right,
I address that issue. But,
right.
anyways, we
Well,
said
you're talking conversation with this Indian dude 2 days ago, and he's like, "Your culture over here is so adverse to pain, in
yeah,
all physical pain, mental, spiritual pain. We numb
avoid
our
it.
alcohol, drugs, medications,
Social
avoidance,
media.
distractions,
Mhm.
football. I'm gonna go watch sports instead of dealing with my problems, doing all these other things." Than actually addressing what's causing all the pain. Like I actually had a Qigong session today for the first time.
Oh,
Like
cool.
it was pretty crazy. Like
Really? I've
yeah,
heard about it a little bit, and I'm just like, I don't know if I'm there yet, but it sounded
yeah,
really
it
interesting.
was pretty awesome. So I'm gonna go
Cool.
do it. But yeah, we got in the West. We don't want to actually deal with stuff in general. Like obviously there's people that do, but in
Yes.
general we just layer over duct tape over the flashing light and just say pretend it isn't flashing underneath.
Yeah. And I think that's why so much aren't aligned and we're so far away from our spiritual journey because you have to go through the dark. You have to go through that shit to be able to
Right,
fully heal from it. And the more you mask it and push it away, it's going to suppress it. But eventually it's going to explode in one avenue or another. And it's going to be messy. So I would just think it's important. Like, yeah, I love my weed, but I also sit here and like meditate and try and like get to
right,
that next level and ask myself these hard questions and jump into my life spiritually. And I think when people don't do
right,
that, they're doing themselves a disservice, but they're also developing really bad habits that are so hard to get out of. When you
right.
start ignoring yourself and your inner being and all the things that set you up, like breathing, people think
Right.
that's wild. And it's like, no, but I wasn't taught how to breathe properly. I just thought,
None of us.
no,
Yeah.
I
Shallow
never
breathing.
breathe with
All
my
of
stomach. What are you
right,
talking about? I breathe with my lungs. Like, what?
right,
And then you find out that you don't even know how to breathe properly. And you're like,
right.
okay,
It's
so let's
old
go
stuff
back to
that-
basics.
like that, getting that, being able to be resilient through pain. Like the same guy was saying, like we don't. How did he put it again? It was basically like, um, yeah, we basically look in the West look at pain as a bad thing, whereas pain in a lot of other cultures is a good thing. You actually are appreciative. And when you do gratitude, no one ever puts pain on their gratitude list, but
I
pain should.
started to. I
Right.
started to.
Pain should, because that's what's grinding you into a new form,
Mhm.
right? If you avoid all the pain, you're never going to elevate to that next level that you need to be at. If you're avoided all the time, you're never advancing. You're
Yep.
staying at the same level all the time.
Yeah.
And then you wonder why you keep dating the same guys, same girls, keep getting cheated on, you keep
Same friends.
and friends keep
Doing
doing shit
shit.
to you, talking behind your back. your
Yep.
your job never goes anywhere. You stay at the same body weight, the body size. Your body never changes in a positive direction, and then you're wondering why. It's because you every time there's a painful situation, you run from it or you
Don't
avoid it.
address it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And you don't
And
face it. Why am I doing this? Or try to make the actions. I'm reading Dr. Joe Dispenza a lot lately.
100%. That's
Absolutely love him. Yeah.
awesome.
So I just got his Evolve Your Brain because I bought the Habit of Breaking Yourself first, and it was kept referring back to Evolve Your Brain. So I'm gonna go back to that one. But just talking about, even if you don't want to talk about like, because of course we were like, oh, that's just quantum quackery. But even if you don't want to like even look at the quantum field itself, like push
Right.
that aside. Even just the fact that he says that you build most of your habits by the time that you're 35, and you have
Right.
to actively be telling yourself. And I, as a 36-year-old, can say that's exactly it. Like, I'll tell myself in the morning, okay, tonight you're not going to snack, or you're going to brush your teeth and wash your face before bed, not be a lazy stoner and just snack and fall asleep. But then the nighttime will come in the day and I'll just be like, I'll wake up the next morning. I'm like, but your mind told you weren't going to do it. Well, because you've programmed your subconscious to
Well,
do this. And until you actively work in your conscious mind to reverse that pattern, it's going to be the same, because you've been doing this for 35, well, not 35 years.
well, and
That
your brain gets accustomed to releasing the exact same chemicals at the exact
feel
same time.
familiar,
And then when you release those chemicals, you have the same thoughts, because those thoughts are tied and the emotions are tied to the same chemicals.
and you're addicted
What
to it.
you have to basically consciously, like you said, okay, I'm feeling this shitty feeling of whatever these chemicals are coming over. Fuck off. I'm not doing it. And move on to something. You have to think of a thought that is pleasant, and you know what I mean? Think of
Yeah,
already believe that your life is the way that you want it to be, like it's already happened, and
and you'll move to it.
have an emotion tied to it. Gratitude, peace, love, the strong emotions, right?
Yeah, yep, yep.
And
And we're not taught
do
this. Instead, we're taught to go fucking all hook up, and that's the coolest thing, and sell yourself in all these different ways. And I'm just like, no,
right, right.
no,
Get a
let's
six pack,
energy exchange.
drink some beer, and watch the hockey game.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that like those times aren't fun. I do
Right,
love going out on the weekends, but there's got to be, to me, there's got to be a little bit of a balance, because then there doesn't have to be anything. It depends what you want in your life. If you
right,
want the same thing over and over again, then keep doing that. But I
sure,
think most people don't, and they just do what they know. But
right,
when they find out that they have the ability to change, and that you are what your reality and your environment is, I don't know the specifics of it as much yet, but I've started gratitude about 5 years ago, and my life has progressively gotten better. And it's when you, like you said, thank the hard moments, because those are what made you who you are today, as well as
right,
the good ones. I have a
right,
tattoo that says, I'm greater than my highs and lows.
right,
It was
right.
actually, God is greater than our highs and lows, but I didn't want
Right,
to
but
put
that's
that.
that's
Uh,
absolutely true. We get tied into those things, and we think we are those things. Where I, like we'll go back to hockey. When I used to be a big Canucks fan, I'm laid off of that now because I realize it's more life. But when they lose, I feel, oh fuck,
yeah.
I'm so low. And when they win, and now I look back, I'm like, what the hell was I doing? I was tied to a freaking team of guys that I don't know, that don't give two shits about me,
Nope. You don't make money
that
off of them, or
just
like,
that they have the name of the city that's is closest to me, that I naturally have to cheer for. My emotions are tied to something that has nothing to do with me, right? And we do that to not just with hockey, but everything else,
everything. Yeah.
right?
Yeah, like a show's not on. You're like, oh my God, they canceled my
Yeah,
favorite show. I don't know how I'm gonna survive. And same thing. I used to get so worked up when like, something didn't work out that was like an entertainment thing. And now I'm like, I struggle. I
yeah,
watched like Christmas. I really struggled this year, because it's like I don't want to fall into the corporatism of it, but I do love giving and I love that time of
right,
year. But it's like it's nice to be aware, and you don't have to change everything. But I think it's just like awareness of what's going on and what feels good to you, and just to push out the outside noise of the clown world is
right.
what's the most important, I think. I think we could end
People,
on that. I think that's a good way
yeah,
to end, right?
yeah,
Like,
sure. Yeah, yeah.
be
We have
yourself.
we can probably do another one actually,
I
just
100%. It was
because
great. See?
we haven't got into the toxic things about guys, and
I
like,
know there's lots.
right. But yeah, we should end here, and yeah, like I'm up to do it again at some point. But
Yeah, we can make it
anyways,
a series. We can make it a
yeah,
whole series of all the different
yeah.
ways the world is
Well,
all weird.
or they're
But
like, that guy
thank-
talks. Yeah, we will.
no, it's amazing. I knew we would have so much fun. I know I was like, oh, we're running out of time, and we'll have that just means another one. But thank you so
Okay.
much for coming on. This is so much
Thank you.
fun.
Yeah, that
Um,
was awesome.
yeah, if you want to, are we allowed to say co-follow you on Vancity
Sure.
Mountaineer? Because
Yeah.
we've got
Don't get offended if I make a lot of jokes. So I'm
no,
not serious half the time. I'm just shitting on people, and
but you
and
know what?
I am sitting in the back laughing and enjoying myself, and people,
But the thing is that we need that comedic relief in the world. We
right,
need the Dave Chappelles and the Vancity Mountaineers to be like, "Hey, come on, guys, this is crazy." And just one quick one: you're not the only one that brought up this filters. Candace Owens brought this up
hmm,
about ask men and women, or men, sorry, specifically, do you like women to have Botox and filters? And I'm sorry, ladies, 90% of men said no. and she got dragged for that. And I don't think that is very fair, because it's then just admit you're doing it for yourself, and that's okay. But don't ask people what they want. They tell you, and then you get mad at them because it's not what you wanted to hear. Like I don't have any of those things, and I hope that people understand that, like, I don't have Botox and fillers, and it's not that I don't ever think about it. I think about it all the time.
Right.
But I think about, if I was to have a daughter, or like my mom, like, she's never had it either. And I think she's so beautiful. And I think it's beautiful to age. And I just think that way. So I want to lead by example. And I don't want to get sucked into that. I need to do that to be beautiful. I would rather work with a therapist and figure out why I don't feel beautiful without that. You know what I mean? And so we need that balance.
Right. And when I made those jokes on there, I wasn't meaning to vilify anyone who's done it or degrade them. If you have it done, doesn't mean I would never think you're a beautiful person or what, but you're greater than that. You're greater than needing to do that. As a guy, I mean, most of us guys, we're not attracted to you because of that. As females, right? We're attracted to more than what your exterior, and to us, it almost looks a little ridiculous, like, because we just think because we see who you really are. Typically, most guys, if you're attracted, because there are the other guys out there, but those are the ones that you shouldn't be attracting, right? Like, if a guy's attracted to that, then he's attracted to something that isn't actually you.
Absolutely.
So he's not. Yeah. He's attracted to this sort of caricature of you.
And it's dangerous. And I think that's why it's important. Like, yes, it's funny and says jokes. And yes, and obviously it's not a judgment thing. It's more concern.
Right.
It's more concern of, like, and like you said, you guys see it. And that's what, like, it's just like when people wear too much makeup and they're worried to show their spouse without makeup. It's the same kind of thing. It is just always good to be yourself and let that person and the people around you fall in love with who you really are. And if you're doing it, just be honest with it. Same with the Liver King. No one fucking cared that you were on gear. We all knew that. It's that you lied about it. No one cares that you were on it. No one's taken away the hard work that you did. It's that you lied several times about doing it. And that's the problem. That's what your point is too, is like, don't sell this version and then show up, because if it was a guy doing it, if it was someone came in from his mom's basement full of spaghetti, not looking like Eminem, you'd be mad, right? Like,
from 1982, like,
I'm just saying.
Right? And like I say, no one caught this thing. I was really disappointed because I put that in and I thought girls laugh their ass off. I said, if he's showing pictures of him in gray sweatpants and looks like he's got a baby's arm in there, and then he goes up and he has nothing in there, you're gonna be disappointed, right? Like,
I'm just kidding.
I was actually disappointed no one made that, like, picked it out and commented on it and laughed. I was like, dude, that was my best part of that whole freaking thing.
Nothing is worse than when you just drop the best thing ever and it's silence and you're like, want to go back on, like, did you guys read that? Like, I don't think, go back. I don't think you read that. That was good. And you didn't give me enough credit. Like, is everyone sleeping today? Fuck. But we'll definitely have you back on. This was so much fun. I appreciate you so, so much. Until next time then, I guess.
All right. You take care, okay?
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you guys for stopping by the show today. We appreciate you so, so much. If you like this episode and you want to see more, make sure to show us some love on our Instagram page, the Be Real Babe Podcast. You can follow us on YouTube. Make sure you're turning on those notifications for Apple and Spotify so you get notified as soon as an episode drops. Or you can become a member of our Patreon page with extra content and early access. But make sure to stay tuned for more realness coming to you next week, babes.